So these are the things we'll use next. We need our sewing needle, our little bobbin of thread, and then we've got 2 mouse pieces. So we're just going to start with the one. You should have a little face drawn on it, hope. So I've just used this little like water pen on it. So it looks quite faint in the video. I'm not even sure if you can see that, but there's 2 little eyes. And then there's like a J. Yeah, and then like a backwards J, a little hook. So that's going to be the face. And then our whiskers are going to go here, but you don't really need to draw lines for those, so that's fine. But this is just a good guide so we know where to do the sewing. First bit that we'll do is to stitch we'll start with the eyes and then we'll move down to the mouth. Perfect. We'll do the mouth next, then we'll do the whiskers. So we're going to do all the black at the same time. The little pink bits we'll add later, so don't worry about those just yet. So you'll get your top bit, so make sure you only have 1 layer. We're going to stitch that first. So I'll just leave this here on the side so you have like a reference, and then I'll do the sewing bit over here. So this is our needle, so make sure you mind your little fingers. And we're going to use the black first. So this is nice thick thread, so I find it doesn't tangle as much as some other threads, thinner ones. You also get like a nice thick line, so you don't have to stitch over the same spot over and over again. So you can unwind all the black. I've given you loads and loads. So I always double my thread, so I've got both ends on this side and then I've got a loop at the other side. So we're just going to take one. I always double it because then I find with kids, you don't have to worry about holding the tail when you sew. So you can just sew confidently without worrying about holding the tail or the needle coming off the thread. So I'll just pull that to the end. So that's how it looks on that end. I've got 2 threads. And then I'm going to show you a trick for tying a knot. This thread is quite thick, so probably just 1 knot will be fine, but this is a trick I use for all of my sewing, and I learned this as a little kid and I still do it today for making a big knot really quickly. So I just hold the ends, my forefinger and thumb, pointer finger, I don't know what you call it, Peter Pointer is the one. I just wrapped it 1 time around my finger and then I just roll it with my thumb off and then I pull it and it makes a nice knot at the end of my thread. That takes a bit of practice, so that can be your homework from today, to practice tying the knot at the end of your thread. And it's a little trick that I've used for years and years and years, so it's a good one to know. And it's also a really quick way to tie the knot at the end of your thread. So there we go. So just the disclaimer is that I'm left-handed, so it will be a little bit different for you, but I'll try to demonstrate. This part doesn't matter so much, but when we do the other bit, I'll do it right-handed. Unless there's someone left-handed, then let me know. So we're going to start with the eyes. So whenever you do your sewing, you always start from the very back. So we're going to hold the mouse in 1 hand and our needle in the other. And what you're going to do is try to poke your needle up from the back in the same place where you have that little blue dot. So you might not hit it the first time, so maybe just try a few times to get the needle to come up right where that little dot is. It looks a bit cruel like this, a little needle coming out of his eye. But so once you've got that, you can just pull it all the way through until you get to the knot. So make sure you don't have any little tail at the end or anything like that. Pull it all the way through. Just keep telling myself to like pace myself to slow down because I know it's a bit tricky to know where everyone's at. So, and then when you've done that, you're just going to go down right next to it. So not in the same hole, but a little bit beside it. You're making just the teeny tiniest little stitch there. You just pull that through all the way. And look, you've got a little black dot there now. And that's the start of the eye. So we're going to do the same thing 2 or 3 times. So just 2 little tiny stitches next to each other, or 3, depending how big you want your eye to be. So I'll do that. So you just go up again from the back. Just need to keep telling yourself up from the back, down in the front, up in the back, down in the front. There we go. I think that's looking, maybe I'll do one more. Up from the back, down in the front. And we're just creating a little dot there. And push that down. There we go. I think that's quite a nice eye. And then from the back, it's quite a big little mess there, but it doesn't matter because you won't see it. So, and then when you're done, you should have your thread in the back of your mouth. If you accidentally have a line going across your mouth, so you've maybe gone up twice or down twice, you can usually just pull the thread back through the front. The felt is quite forgiving. You can usually just pull it back, but try to just keep saying to yourself, up from the back, down through the front. And that's a good little mantra to make sure that you're always going in the right way. We all got an eye. Aye. Excellent. Okay, so to do the second eye, here's a little trick. You don't need to tie your thread off or anything. We're just going to use the same thread. We're going to keep going. So on the back, you're just going to jump over to your next eye. So it's just like the first, you're just going to poke around till you get your little eye. And then you just pull it. The only thing to remember with this one is you should have a line going across the back, but don't pull it so that your face squidges up. You want to make sure it's nice and flat, so don't pull it too tight, but you're going to have a line going across. And then you do the same thing with this eye as you did the last couple tiny little stitches. So we've gone up from the back, down through the front. And pull up from the back, all the way, down in the front, all the way. And I think that looks pretty even. If you have any little blue marker still showing, you can just use a little dab of water later and the pen disappears with water. So don't worry about that if you can see a little bit of the marker pen, but it's quite faint, so I don't think it should be too much of a problem. So the next part is going to be the mouth. So you're just imagine the pink bit's not there. We're going to start at the top of that J. And then I'll show you how to stitch that with a back stitch. We're going to sew all the way down to this end. And then just like we did with the eyes, we're just going to hop over behind our mouth to sew that last little hook. So that's the next step for the mouth. So we get our needle and thread. And our thread, you always look for where the tail is. The tail is on the back, so that's where we need to start. So we know if our tail's on the back of the mouse, that's where we have to start going up from the back. Because if you start on the front, your thread will end up crossing over. So always look when you pick up your sewing project, look, where is my tail? It's on the back. So that's where I'm going to start, on the back. So you find your little J, and you're just going to start just a little bit below the beginning. So that's the point where you want to poke up your needle. So there's a little bit of gap between the start of the J and where my needle's coming up. Try to bring that a bit closer so you can see. So I'm going to pull that through. And just like the eye, you don't want to pull your thread so much that your face squidges up. So just hold it nice and flat, not too tight. And for the back stitch, now we've got our tail in the front. So then we know we're going to go down through the front next. So we're going to make our first stitch by sewing back. So we're going to finish that little line. So we left a little gap there and we're going to sew that little gap now. So just pull your thread all the way. So you've got one little stitch. So I always say to myself to try to make my stitches the size of a grain of rice, which is pretty tiny, but not super tiny. So we're not doing like little tiny mini stitches. You want to make sure they're about the size of a grain of rice so that you don't have to do 30 stitches here. We only need to do like maybe 10 or 12. So not too small. There we go. So once you've got that first stitch, the next time our tail's in the back. So remember, up from the back, we're going to go a little bit further down. So bring that closer. So you're leaving a little gap between your needle and your first stitch. So we're going down a bit and then we're going to join the line so that instead of a dotted line, we have a continuous line. So when you go down, you're going to go down at that stitch. And then you'll be able to see when I pull that through, we've got a continuous line instead of a dotted line. So a good trick is to try to go down in the same hole where your other thread has come up, or as close to it as you can. And then you're always checking my thread is in the back, so I go up from the back. You sew a little bit ahead so you can see. I'm trying to make my needle really obvious so you can see I've gone a little bit ahead of that last stitch. And then you're sewing down to connect your line. So you can see there's a little gap there, and that's going to be my stitch. So I've done 1, 2, 3, I'll probably just do 4 stitches on this side. You pull it all the way. And then always look before you sew my tail. Where is my tail? On the back. So I'm going to go up from the back. And just follow the little blue line that I've drawn for you on your mouse. So we're going to go up and down. There we go. He already looks a little bit happy with just one side of his face, one side of his mouth there. So it should have like a little J. If not, it can just go straight down. It's also fine as long as there's 2 little parts to the mouse. It also doesn't need to be perfect. Everyone's face is a little bit different. So my face is different from Kate's face, different from Claire's, different from Imogen's. And so each of our mice will be totally unique. So there's no right way to do it or wrong way. Maybe the whiskers will be a bit crooked or one eye is a bit smaller than the other, but that's how we all are anyways, naturally. So don't worry if it's not symmetrical or anything. Everyone's mouse is going to be unique, which means it looks different from all the other mice. So each one will have its own little personality. So when you're ready to do the second little hook in your mouth, it's the same as the eyes. We're going to just jump over on the back. So our tail's on the back. So we know we need to go up from the back. And just like how we did before, we're going to go up a little bit down from where we want our stitch to be. So just keep an eye on the little blue line. I'm going to go up from the back. And then we just join it up with our little hook there. There we go. That's the start of it. So I'll probably do 2 more stitches on this little mouth. Make sure it's a little bit smiley. So again, I just go up from the back. And then down in the front. So my tail is in the front, so I know I need to go down in the front. Up from the back, down in the front. And maybe just one more to make it a bit smiley. And I've got 2 eyes and a little mouth. And that's where we're at so far. And the back. This is the hardest bit of the workshop, so you guys are all doing amazing. If this is your first time doing like embroidery, you should be so proud of yourselves because it's tricky sewing. So that's really good. Cool. So for the whiskers, they're just 1 single stitch for each whisker. So same how we've been doing, we just coming up from the back and then 1 long stitch going down, and then we're going to jump to the next one up from the back and then 1 going down and then jump from the back. So we've got just 4 stitches left on the face. You could have 3 whiskers if you want. It depends how much space you kind of have on your face. But just imagine where you're going to have a little pink nose. So I think mine will be about there. So just going to come up from the back. And then just stitch across 1 big one. It can be a bit longer than a grain of rice. Nice little line there. Then when you do your next one, you just come up from the back. And again, 1 nice long stitch, just joining it back to where you think your nose might be. There we go. And then again, up from the back, down through the front. And always check where your tail is, up from the back. And then down through the front. There you go. And that's the face done once we have our whiskers. So it looks nice and neat on the front. Quite a big mess on the back. So don't worry about that bit. But you can see where we've jumped for our whiskers. You have like a little dash on each side, on the back and on the front. Looks like a cute, sweet little mouse. So when you're all done your whiskers and you're ready to tie off your thread, make sure your tail is on the back. And then you're just going to cut your thread, leave a little bit of a tail, so maybe 2 inches, something like that. And then you can put your leftover thread to the side and you can use it for another sewing project. And then because we've got a double thread, you're going to just separate your strands and just tie a regular old double knot. Like that. And then once you've done a double knot, you can just cut your threads a little bit shorter. Just leave like a little tail there. Okay. So that's our mouse front done. Then the next bit that we're going to do is we're going to cut our ears next, and then we're going to start to sew our mouse together.